I arrived 10 minutes late on purpose. The new townhouse was part of a development outside Manchester, glass balconies, identical brickwork, narrow strips of lawn pretending to be gardens. My brother Daniel stood at the door greeting guests like he'd personally laid the foundations. He looked proud. I was genuinely happy for him. I kept my coat on when I stepped inside. It was an old navy wool I bought secondhand during my first year at university. The lining had been stitched twice at the elbow. It was warm, practical, and unimpressive. I'd worn it through investor meetings, through winter train commutes to London, through the early years when my company existed mostly as a slide deck and a hope. Daniel's girlfriend, Lauren, noticed it immediately. She had the polished brightness of someone recently promoted, sharp blazer, careful makeup. Laughter that carried just far enough to make sure others heard it. She tilted her head at me. "That's vintage," she said lightly. Then, louder, to the small circle forming around her. "I bet you're here to beg for money since you're homeless." A few people chuckled, not cruelly, just reflexively. It wasn't the joke that stung. It was how easily the narrative formed. Drifter brother. Underachiever. The one who never quite got it together. Before I could even respond, my dad clapped a hand against my shoulder. "Don't be so sensitive," he muttered. "She's joking." There it was. The old script. Smooth things over. Avoid discomfort. Protect the room, not the person. I smiled faintly and took off and over my arm. "It's fine," I said. And it was. Or at least, it would be. I'd learned something over the years. Silence has timing. Sometimes you correct immediately. Sometimes you wait until correction matters. Lauren drifted back into conversation, telling someone about her new job. I poured myself a drink and listened from the kitchen island while pretending not to. "It's a tech consultancy," she was saying. "They were acquired recently, proper growth trajectory. The CEO's apparently some visionary." Daniel beamed at her as if she'd personally discovered electricity. I didn't interrupt. The company she was describing was mine. 3 years ago we acquired a mid-sized consultancy based in Leeds. It wasn't glamorous, but they had solid enterprise contracts and a capable engineering team. We integrated them quietly, kept their brand for stability, and began restructuring from within. I'd never been the kind of CEO who needed a public profile. I preferred clean balance sheets to keynote stages. Lauren continued, warmed by attention. "I start Monday. Strategic operations. I'll be reporting directly into senior leadership." I took a sip of my drink. "Which division?" I asked casually. She looked surprised I'd spoken. "Operations strategy. For the northern office?" I asked. "Yes," she said, slightly sharper now. "Interesting," I replied. "That team consolidated into London 2 weeks ago." There was a brief pause. She laughed. "No, it didn't." "It did," I said calmly. "Board vote was unanimous. We're centralizing to reduce overhead before Q3. Daniel frowned. "How would you know that?" I set my glass down. "I would know," I said, "because I chaired the meeting." Silence doesn't fall dramatically in real life. It thins. Conversations nearby fade. The air shifts. Lauren stared at me, waiting for the punchline. I didn't give her one. "The company you're joining," I continued evenly, "is mine. I founded the parent group 8 years ago. We completed the acquisition in March." My father blinked. "What?" I met his eyes briefly. Not accusatory, just steady. Lauren's face went pale, then flushed. "That's not funny." "It isn't meant to be." She looked to Daniel, searching for contradiction. He had none to offer. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't mention the coat. I didn't repeat her comment. Instead, I shifted to business. "Your offer letter was contingent on background verification," I said. "Our compliance team flagged discrepancies in your listed consulting hours and a previous role title. HR was already reviewing." Her mouth opened slightly. "I hadn't signed off yet," I added. "Now I won't." Daniel's voice cracked. "You're firing her. Over a joke?" "No," I said quietly. "Not over a joke." I let that settle. The decision was procedural. The documentation didn't hold. I would have followed up Monday regardless. Lauren's hands trembled. "You can't just." "I can," I said not harshly. "And I don't enjoy it." That was true. There was no surge of triumph. No vindictive satisfaction. Just the steady weight of responsibility. Leadership isn't theatrical. It's administrative. My father finally spoke softer now. "Why didn't you tell us?" I considered the question. I asked. "During the years you asked if I'd found a stable job yet." He looked away. Daniel rubbed his forehead. You never said. You never asked beyond the surface. I replied, it wasn't blame. It was fact. Lauren's composure fractured then, not dramatically, but enough. This is humiliating, she whispered. I almost told her that humiliation often feels disproportionate when it arrives unexpectedly. That I'd just experienced a smaller version of it 30 minutes earlier. Instead, I picked up my coat. I'll ask HR to send formal notice first thing Monday, I said. You'll receive payment for the onboarding period as outlined. Professional, clean. I turned to Daniel. Congratulations on the house, it's beautiful. He looked torn. Between loyalty and shock. Dad didn't say anything this time. At the door, I slipped my arms back into the coat. The lining brushed my wrist where I'd stitched it years ago by hand in a cramped flat I could barely afford. I'd kept it 'cause it reminded me who I was before anyone believed in me. I paused only long enough to add, for what it's worth. Lauren, I hope you find something that fits. Not cruel, not kind, just honest. Outside the night was sharp with cold. I sat in my car longer than necessary, hands resting on the steering wheel. Power feels different than people imagine. It's not loud. It's not warm. It doesn't erase old patterns overnight. But it is undeniable. Inside that townhouse, the narrative about me had shifted permanently. There would be questions now. Awkward calls, recalibrations. I didn't feel victorious, I felt clear. Some dignity isn't taken back with speeches. It's reclaimed in timing. I started the engine and drove home. The coat still wrapped around me. Not as proof of where I'd been, but as quiet evidence of how far I'd come.